This old folk tale is known by many names. It is Rapunzel, as told by the brothers Grimm, Tangled in the Disney film. I doubt, however, if you've heard it told in this particular way, which recaptures the very practical reason why the tale circulated among the folks in the first place. Once upon a time, there was a husband and wife, and they were very sad because, try as they might, they could not conceive a child. Then one day the wife said,
"Husband, I have some good news and some not so good news. The good news is, at last we're going to have a baby. The not so good news is that I have a craving for that lettuce growing in the neighbour's garden. I must have some immediately, or I shall die."
This was not so good news because next door's garden, which was surrounded by a high wall, was owned by a witch who was not the friendliest of neighbors. But the husband replied,
"Oh, don't worry, my dear. When night falls, I'll climb over the wall and I'll fetch you some of that lettuce. The witch will never know."
When it was dark, the husband climbed the wall and picked some choice leaves of lettuce from the witch's vegetable garden. But as he was about to climb back again, he found the witch barring his way.
"And what do you think you're doing?"
My wife is expecting a child and she has a craving for your lettuce. She told me she must have some or she would die."
"Oh, well, in that case, you may take the lettuce. But in exchange, you must swear to give me your first child as soon as it is born."
"Oh, I swear."
So when the baby girl was born, the husband handed her over to the witch. The witch was a good stepmother to the girl, who grew into the most beautiful creature under the sun and had a sweet nature besides.
A minute. What did her birth mother have to say about this adoption deal?
Thanks for asking. At this point, all I can tell you is the story never mentions her again. The witch named the infant Lettice. That's Lettice, Lettice. But when Lettice had celebrated her 12th birthday, the witch locked her up in a chamber at the top of a tall tower in the middle of a forest. The witch would feed her stepdaughter once a day by means of a basket that she filled with provisions and hoisted up on a rope and pulley to the one window of the chamber. The girl was very sad, but what could she do? She passed the time gazing at the view, all the while singing sad songs.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed.
For she had the loveliest voice you can imagine.
Some say love, it is a razor that leaves the soul to bleed.
Meanwhile, her hair grew longer and longer as there was no one to cut it.
Excuse me, but I thought you said the witch was a good stepmother.
I did, and she was, until Lettice turned 12. To return to my story, a few years later, a handsome prince happened to be traveling alone through a forest. Suddenly, his ears were filled with the sweetest song he'd ever heard.
Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need.
Following the sound, he came to the foot of a tall tower, and there at a high window, he saw the most beautiful maiden singing her heart out.
I say love, it is a flower, and you its only seed.
Lettice had never seen a young man before and stopped in the middle of her song to look at him. For the pair of them, it was, needless to say, love at first sight. But what were they to do?
"Fairest one, pray descend from your tower so that I, a king's son, may determine at close quarters whether you be a goddess, for so you seem to me, or a mortal maiden, as I scarcely dare to hope."
I'm of flesh and blood, my prince, as you seem also to be. But I cannot come down to you. I'm locked up here. the prisoner of my stepmother, a powerful witch. I fear what she might do if she should find you at the foot of my tower.
Then she shall not find me there. Let down your beautiful hair, my darling, and hold on tight to the window frame. I shall use your hair to help me climb the tower, and then we can be together until your stepmother returns.
So Lettice let down her hair, which reached to the ground, and the prince used it to climb the tower. Once he was up and through the window, the pair gazed into one another's eyes, fell into one another's arms, and one thing led to another, as always happens in such cases.
Hey, does that mean what I think it means?
The prince continued to visit Lettice in her tower secretly for the next 3 months. The witch did not suspect a thing. But one day, as the witch was filling the basket with produce for her stepdaughter, Lettice called down to her.
Mother, next time you're in town, could you please buy me a new dress? This one seems to be getting too small for me around the waist.
I'm sorry, but that's not how the story goes. This is a fairy tale for innocent children, for heaven's sake.
That is exactly how the story goes, as I will explain in due course. Now, if I may continue. The witch immediately suspected what had been going on. She contrived to lie in wait in the bushes nearby, and soon she saw the prince arrive and scale the tower by means of Lettice's hair. When he had disappeared through the window, she unlocked the door at the foot of the tower.
Door? What door?
Did I forget to mention this door?
Yes, you did.
Sorry. Anyway, she crept up the spiral staircase inside. It ended at another locked door that led into Lettice's chamber. Unlocking this, she burst in and found the two lovers in, well, you get the picture, the prince struggling to get his pants on.
Oh, please.
Bravely attempted to confront the witch, but she was too powerful, and by force of magic, she hurled him straight out of the window.
Ah!
He landed far below in a patch of thorns, which broke his fall, but put out both his eyes. Meanwhile, the witch confronted Lettice.
Put on your clothes. Leave the tower this instant and never darken my door again.
Yes, stepmother.
Otherwise unhurt, the prince wandered sadly off. But let's hear the lovers tell what happened next in their own words. Prince?
Totally blind, I staggered to my feet and tried to find my way home through the forest. But soon I became hopelessly lost. Eventually, a pair of rough-spoken countrymen approached me. But when I told them I was a prince and they saw I was blind, they robbed me of my purse, my jewelry, and my sword. Overcome by despair, I moped by the wayside. At length, a young girl came by and led me to her grandmother's house deep in the forest. There the old lady dressed my wounded eyes, bathed and fed me. While I was recovering from my ordeal, the girl went to my parents' castle and there explained what had happened to me. The king and queen richly rewarded the girl and her grandmother for their kindness, and sent a royal escort to bring me home. But my parents were furious that their only son, the heir to the throne, should have messed up his life so thoroughly. They warned me that the people of the kingdom would never accept a blind monarch. As for Lettice,
After my stepmother had driven me from the tower, I sought my prince. Oh, but the forest had swallowed him up. For what seemed like ages, I wandered aimlessly, surviving only because kind cottage folk, noticing my swelling belly, took pity on me and gave me food and shelter. At last, after many tribulations, I found my way to the castle of my prince's parents. The guards ran to tell the queen that a young woman, heavily pregnant, her long hair trailing far behind her, was weeping at the drawbridge. Recognizing me from her son's description, the queen ordered that I be admitted. At last, I was reunited with my prince, and my tears, falling on his eyes, miraculously restored them to sight. Taking this as a favorable sign, The king and queen approved our marriage, and shortly after the wedding, I gave birth to a pair of beautiful twins. In the fullness of time, the prince and I became king and queen.
But you're still wondering why baby Lettice's parents gave her up to the witch so easily. Let me explain. We all know that good and bad can coexist in the same person, so that, for example, a mother, out of a mistaken sense of what constitutes moral guidance, may seriously fail to protect her daughter. In the tales that come to us from the common folk, such a person is often represented by two different characters. That's the case here. Lettice's biological mother and the witch are the same person. This mother figure is good until her daughter becomes a sexual being at puberty. But then herself transforming into a stereotypical bad stepmother, she locks away her daughter rather than teaching her about men and sex. Love cannot be denied, however, and Lettice gets pregnant without even knowing it's possible. Both lovers then suffer as a result of the mother's misguided actions. The wisdom of the folktale accords with our own common sense. Knowledge of the facts of life is a better moral guardian than ignorance. This tale was intended for mothers and their teenage daughters, but the Grimm censored the sexual theme to make it suitable for young middle-class children. And since then, we've come to believe that fairy tales are innocent romances. They are much more important than that. Of course, in the end, everyone lives happily ever after.
Oh,
Except those who stomp out in disgust when the truth of the tale becomes plain.